Swamiji, it's such an honor always to sit with you and talk about various topics. And especially when there is live audience and their energy with us, the conversations go very, very divine. And before we start off, thank you. I know there's a little bit of a turmoil in Delhi, and to see such lovely teachers come in the morning, so excited, so dressed up to meet Swamiji and listen to what he has to say. So thank you for being a part of this session. And I hope the next 1 hour is going to be something that you guys take back. When you go back to the school again and address the students, is something that you take back with you and make you guys a better teachers. So Swamiji, firstly, I want to take you back to the memory lane, right? Before becoming the global head of Chinmaya Mission, you were also working very closely as a director for Chinmaya International Residential School. And I know personally that you work with a lot of youngsters. Before we address the teachers, I want to talk to you about the youngsters as to your experience of you being a student and when you had teachers is very different from today how teachers are with students, right? Can you tell us how was your experience as students and how were you treating your teachers?
I think I had some of the most amazing school teachers in my life. I remember my first kindergarten teacher or nursery teacher. Like many children, I went crying and crying and crying, and I would not leave my, governess's hand. And my first experience of a teacher was love. I cried, I screamed, and I still have a very vivid memory of that small age. I just cried and cried, and all I remember is, while all the children were sitting in their small little benches, she picked me up and kept me on her lap throughout the session. And I don't think so after that I ever missed a day of my school through my school career willingly. And I loved each day of my school. So that was my first experience of my teacher.
Lovely.
And I've had amazing teachers, which maybe as we go on, we will talk about them.
Yeah.
But my most beautiful memories were more of school than of university. And school teachers, I must say, you rock.
And they're special, right? So we'll never forget them, wherever we go. But Swamiji, you made a very important point that teachers are I would call them the kingmakers. They are the people who shape personalities. And teachers sitting in this room are dealing with a generation who is so different. We call them Gen Z. I think they have a mix of Gen X and Gen Z, if I'm not wrong. And the first step for them now, in the last decade or the next coming decade, is unlearning what they have learned. Because it's a very new way of teaching, new way of making them understand and talking to them. So what would today's generation, the Gen X when you speak about, right? How would you address them? How do you bracket them?
The main feature that is different is that they're exposed to so much information that is available on social media, the various channels, even as far as the subject matter of their, syllabus is concerned. They are they can, not that everybody does, so don't be frightened. Yeah. So they can get all information. And if for them education means only gathering information, like earlier, it was a lot of giving information to the students.
Yeah.
Today, since the information is available, it's more important that teachers give insight into the subject. And that's very important. So that students, when they get information from any source, they know how to process that information and how to make that information into usable knowledge, usable understanding. So there is where I would say that earlier we could get away with just giving information because information is necessary as the first step of education. Few teachers would take you to have the insight into the subject, and those are the teachers we remember all our life, I'm sure all of you also, who made you understand the subject matter and how to study it further even on your own if you do. So books can only give us information, but insight only the teacher can give. So to develop that ability to give them the insight into the subject, that's a very important key factor, and which is very important today, especially when information is just available.
Just available everywhere. Free of cost. Just there in Google.
Yeah.
Totally. That's a very valid point. And Swamiji, another thing about the maturity level. Today, the students who are 10 years think like they're 15. 15 think like they're already in their 20s. Because of, as you said, social media, so much of information available and exposure, there's boon and bane. Now, the teachers are dealing with not the age group, but maturity level much more than that. So what advice would you give teachers to handle them better?
I don't know what we mean by maturity, but it's not that they are more mature, they just have a lot more information, and we must know the difference between being intellectual and being intelligent, which I generally, with all my parenting session, I keep repeating to the parents that just because somebody is just questionings are two types. One is defiance, and the other is to know. So when there is that defiance, that is not making them any intellectual, just because they are questioning. Therefore, we must know the difference between these two.
Right.
Being defiantly questioning just because I know it, or inquiring to know more. To know the difference between the two, and then to be able to communicate to them, one, to bring them on the right path of inquiry rather than of defiance, and the other to lead them through the path of inquiry to know deeper about the subject matter.
Right. And Swamiji, teachers sitting here are the ones who are going to be shaping the tomorrow of India. They are the ones who are actually working with the youngsters. They have multiple roles. Earlier, teachers were, of course, gurus and teachers. Now, they have the responsibility of being a teacher, being a mentor, being a friend, being a counselor, sometimes probably dealing with mental health issues that students come up with. They are somebody whom teachers look up to, and they have multiple hats to wear. So it is, of course, very difficult. But again, I think that's one of the advantages of Chinmaya schools, is because there is a holistic education that we bring into schools, right? There is spiritual guidance, then there is science, there is a beautiful amalgamation of both. So for teachers who literally are multi-hatting, what would you like to say?
Teachers' role all times have been this multiple aspect only. Really speaking, our teachers also were like that. Only we feel that, okay, we have got more number of psychological issues to be dealt with. Earlier, probably it was just attention deficiency, which also we did not classify as attention deficiency, and you just thought it was a mischievous kid. So you try to control that kid. But today, education is available, and which is good to a whole range of students. And therefore, yes, it is a little bit more challenging, because you don't have a limited mindset of children, you don't have a limited range of mental issues or developments. So naturally it's a little bit more, and therefore, like even in the corporate world, that today psychology is a very important subject matter. And it cannot be like our schools, which is a completely integrated school, where we have our Chinmaya Vision program, which we call as CVP, which is a complete development of the child. And as we develop the children, we are developing ourselves only. And we also want an integrated development. And as teachers, we understand that when we teach, we are the first learners. So it is our development only, and when we deal with different and even challenging aspects of different minds of the students, even our mind goes through so many different moods, so many different phases in our life also. If we consider that to be self-training, self-development, as we develop. Now our Puja Gurudev, even though a spiritual teacher, is one of the best examples of the art of teaching. To teach the subtle matters of Vedanta, compared to teaching even physics and chemistry, is far, far subtle science. So the art of communication, the art of mentoring, the art of, making people understand at different levels of their growth also, even spiritual growth. So spiritual science, which is the subtlest science, that's why I encourage most teachers. That's how I learnt also. I mean, I had fantastic school teachers, but to have a teacher like Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, par excellence. Don't just take him as, we think spiritual gurus of do's and don'ts. That itself was an amazement to me when I heard him for the first time. It's something that we have to learn even from his videos today. That how do you communicate knowledge, that too also such subtle knowledge, to people in an audience of thousands, but catering to all levels of minds. That is it's an amazing art, where it can only be picked up from our teachers. It's not something that can really be taught as A, B, C, D points. It's something that we learn from great people. We learn from great teachers. And if we have been exposed to them, nothing like that. But at least by just watching, and today we've got that advantage, as much as people criticize, media, etc., social media, whatever, today we've got an advantage of learning from such great teachers. So that's an effective way of doing it. And once you learn the art of it, it's not like, we think that, I have to handle psychological cases in a different manner. I have to understand, a subject in a different manner. It's actually our whole personality as a teacher develops in such a way that when you are even speaking to a different diaspora of children, or even different mindsets or different levels of development of the mind, it becomes just spontaneous to do it. Otherwise, it sounds quite daunting. As rightly said by Vinay, it seems very daunting that I have to be a mentor. But our teachers were all that, and you teachers are also all that. It's only to what level we can develop ourselves to be able to develop students in such a manner that their growth is fast, their growth is effective.
Swamiji, while you were telling this, right, one of the things that I can empathize with teachers, and I don't know who will agree with me, is that communication, the language has changed so much now, because today people speak a different language, a different tone. When you were a student, I'm sure the respect and adulation for teachers was so much more. And even when I was a student, we look up to teachers because come what may, they are gurus, right? And of course now there are students who do that, but the communication of the way they talk, the way teachers have to talk to them, parental interference when something goes wrong in terms of why you hitting my kid or why you shouting at my kid, without realizing the teachers spend 8 hours a day with students, more than what parents do. So it is a little tough in 2024, I must say. So Swamiji, what would you say about that?
I completely agree with you, because when we were children, and if our teacher gave a bad remark in our calendar, or which was not very nice, but if we did get a caning, and we used to get that, not because we did, the whole class used to get. How unfair it was, now we can't go back and do it, but if we came with a caning, and I never got a caning, and it used to be a caning, it leaves scars on us.
God.
It was cruel, I must say that, but that's why we say never ever touch a child. But we used to get it because somebody did something and nobody knew what it was, so the whole class would get it. And the amazing part was that if we did come with a caning, first thing you would get another slap from your mother. What did you do wrong? Even though she knew that a person like me would never do anything wrong. Even my teachers would not complain about me. And yet, if I ever came, I had to hide that mark, which was so painful, and not even get sympathy. Because first thing, of course my parents didn't hit me, but they would get a scolding. First of all, what did you do wrong? Why would a teacher would want to hit you? Today we know how it has reversed, where even if you scold a child or even if you give the just marks and the child has not done well, the parents come jumping upon the teacher. But there is where I think we need to make parents understand that if the child, I know it's not very easy, but when we have a parents-teachers meet, we have to create that relationship with the parents so that they partner or we partner with them also in the upbringing of the child. I know it's sometimes again appears to be a very tedious process, but sometimes matter of one conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just talking, it's just making sure the communication is open.
The main thing is communication is more, rather than being defiant or justifying our act of maybe scolding the child, and that also when it was necessary, or giving them certain marks, or not probably giving them, say, a play in a drama if the child is not performing. And I know parents how even in our Bal Vihars it's the same stories. If you don't give a role to the child, the parents will come like, why did my child not get a role? And everybody can't be a Rama in this role. Yeah. So those are kind of things that parents do, and not all parents, but some parents do. And sometimes even parents can be very, very tough. But I think if you can communicate to them that whatever we are doing is not out of prejudice, which we should, of course, never do, and I don't think our teachers do it. Even when we thought our teachers were being prejudiced, later on we came to realize it was not so. So not only that you're not prejudiced, but they should not see you as prejudiced. That's very important.
Swamiji, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you is biasness. When teachers in a class full of people, students, there are people who have better IQ. Some of them might not. Some of them might need little more push than the others. So very frequently that students talk about is, it's the pressure. The last conversation that we had was about FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And students always have that am I competing with somebody? Am I missing out on something? Good or bad, when somebody is actually getting into doing different things, students get into the pressure of being there. And teachers somewhere have to be so watchful of every student. And it's more like it's like case studies of everybody they should know at the back of the mind, not just their studies, but also what's the kind of company they are in, how is their track progress, talking to their parents and stuff. How much important is for teachers to heal, to keep their mental stability so intact, because they all have their personal lives and come with a lot of issues from home, happiness, sadness, issues and all that. When they come and they see a class of students, the energy is very infectious. So how can they keep their mind very stable and not get into this whole biasness?
See, teacher is all about love. Even as dads or moms who are working in the corporate world or working outside and doing their businesses, you have to learn to leave your sandals outside the house, before you come from your office. Same way, when we come in, first of all, they are inspiring, as you know, and other people's children are even more inspiring, because your children, a bit of attachment is there. But when with others, that whatever happens, however difficult they are, at least in the evening, they are going to go back home. Your children you have to live with. So that's why I find that teachers are more compassionate to the students than to their own children sometimes. So, of course, my image of teachers have always been, they're the most amazing people. They're like parents in our life. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva. We say to the guru, to the teacher, and we consider all our teachers as guru. Guru means a teacher, though it's now associated only with the spiritual teacher. And of course, that has a completely different level of teaching, understanding, and therefore reverence that we develop. But In our culture, we respect every teacher. Whether it's music, dance, or even just someone in the office has mentored us, we are always grateful. And that culture must be passed on. Teachers can't demand a child that you be respectful to me. But, but command that respect, that they learn to respect all teachers, respect all elders, respect all source of knowledge. It starts with what our parents used to teach us, and including our school teachers. That if a book fell down, it's the source of knowledge. As simple as it may appear very small. Because when I go to schools abroad, there's no respect for books. Books are flying here, falling there. Today also I see somewhere in certain schools in India, the books are under the table. They're stepping upon it. Why these simple things? That we revere the source of knowledge. However little may be that source of knowledge, however thin that source of knowledge will be. That was a beautiful sight. Yeah? Whatever little we do, that momentum just continues like this. Yeah? For those who don't know, that garland just went so beautifully. It's like a pack of cards. You just hit one, everything falls into place. So in that manner, if we do that little things about them to revere the source of knowledge, for the students to even respect the teacher. Because whatever said and done, if you teach well and your presence is good and they see that you are empathetic towards them, they have to revere you. I'll give you an example. There was one subject in my school which, when in my early classes, I didn't do very well in my test. And I did find it difficult. It was a language subject. So every language you can't repeat, because they have their own nuances, they have their own way of pronunciations. And so, as time went by, you don't like the subject, so naturally children are children. They lose interest. When they lose interest, they're out of focus. So even though you may not be very mischievous, but you are distracted. Whether you're doodling or whatever it may be. So you're distracted. And it so happens, it's a vicious cycle. The teacher doesn't see you interested. The teacher keeps on correcting you. Yeah. The teacher goes on scolding you. The teacher keeps on testing you more and more. And you start feeling like, why me? Why me? That feeling that comes up. And then you stop liking the teacher.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that can happen to you is that you stop liking the teacher. Then you don't like the subject, you don't like the teacher, you don't want to listen to the teacher, you think the teacher is picking on you and all that. And this went on for the whole year. Even the terminal examination, I failed in that. But luckily you don't fail the standard because you've not done well. One subject. I managed to at least pass the final examination. And to my horror, next year, who's my class teacher? I said, now that I'm failing the class, I better tell my parents, take me to another school. But something wonderful happened. We underestimate our teachers, but we underestimate the students also. She saw my report card and one day called me, again quite bluntly she tells me that you're good in every subject, then why are you bad in my subject? Now I was not like, now I know today will they say, they will typically say that should be my question. Because the blame goes on the teacher, you're not a good teacher. That's how you would be encountering it. Though those days, if we ever insulted our teacher or dared to even say a word, even behind her back, again, that's when your parents, the only time my parents would show a threat of a hand is don't say anything against your teacher, elders, as such. So today it's not like that. Today everybody writes against everybody in every media whatsoever. So it's difficult. But all I did was like a typical teenager. And those days also we reacted the same way. Don't say anything is different now. Like, I don't know. Rather than giving any answer, getting yourself into trouble, I don't know. But that day when she suddenly just told me that I'll give you extra attention. Will you work hard on my subject?
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. That day I went, I was a little boy. Oh, I'm in love with this teacher. And then to definitely impress her, I tried hard. She also would not pick up on me because she realized that it's not that I'm a distracted child or I'm a misbehaving child. So somehow that rapport was again created. It's all about communication. Sometimes it's just a word of thought that you're distracted in my class, what would you do? I'll give you another example also. There was one teacher who would just come and plonk herself on the chair and just read out from the textbook. However, some of my friends, cousins, used to go for tuition to her classes and they said she's an amazing teacher. But our experience was it was not. You should just class, just read the subject. So slowly some of the students got together and we never revolted. Some said we should go and complain to the principal. Some said that no, I don't think so, that's the right thing. Maybe we should tell the teacher that we are interested in your subject and since we know she's actually a good teacher, why don't we show interest and try to make her give us better? One of them was the revolting. So don't think that that time there was none. One was this, and he's still today, I find out, somehow he's contacted me after so many years. He's still very defiant. I hear that, he's divorced also, but so you do have people. He was very defiant and he's just said, no, we have to tell the teacher. We have to tell the teacher or we have to report to the principal. We can't go on like this. So what unfortunately which he did was, and we were talking on how nicely to present to the teacher because you should never be insulting to the teacher, but if she is also not performing, after all it is also our life, and that is what we must allow our students to come forward, not to criticize, but to give us kind of a feedback to see how we can be better teachers. Unfortunately, the day he had not done his homework or not prepared, when the teacher got him and said, you've not been studying or something, she scolded him. So he said, you don't teach properly. And that was not something. So she was a bit stunned in the middle of the class, saying like that. So he told her like that and she got upset. Don't talk like that, go out of the class. And he said, I'm not the only one, all these people, and then naming us. So she looked at us. I'm not a good teacher. First of all, who will dare to get up and say that? But it was not about daring. Personally, I didn't feel that that was the right way of handling it. Of course, he came back to us and tried to get it into an andolan to, let us, you all did not back me. You all talk behind the back, but you don't back me. So I said, listen, we were supposed to go and tell her nicely. Not when you've done a mistake and then you point out the mistake of the teacher. But again, she was such an amazing teacher. Again, this is what, as I said, I treasure all my teachers. Next day she came to class and she said, yesterday one of the children said that I am not teaching well. Do you all think like this? We all kept quiet. But after class, some of us went and told her that we know you're an amazing teacher. We would like to have more active teaching rather than just read a textbook. Anyway, what she said, again, it's both ways, The teacher must not depend, but it does happen. Now, suppose if you are an audience sitting here, absolutely not responding to me and looking like this. I wouldn't be innovative to bring up examples, create some humor, create some interest. After some time, the teacher also gets bored. You know how it is. So she said that I thought y'all are not interested. And she was teaching us geography. Not most students are interested in geography anyway. So she said, but you said, no, we are very interested because a lot of science and geography is linked together. Oh, she turned out to be an amazing teacher. So sometimes that interaction is so much necessary. And so children are not, even now today, because, for many years I was the director for our Chinmaya International Residential School. Being an international school, it also had what you're facing now. It had gathered all these things many years before because internationally they are connected. So it had happened. But yet, when we know that we give them the value systems, our teachers, went through their orientation on how to, pass on the values. They themselves took interest in those values and passed it on. As you know, in our Vidyalayas, that there are, on the Teacher's Day, the children will come and bow down to the teacher. No? And that's what many of our teachers have reported. Why do they want to be in this school? Because nowhere else you get that kind of respect from the children. And when children respect the teachers also feel that, sense of a natural giving to the students. So it has to be mutual. Two-way, but of course, the teachers have like the parents have greater responsibility.
Two-way communication, taking constructive feedback, and just having the best interest. I think those are the beautiful things that you told, Swamiji. I know a lot of teachers here have questions. I have one last question before I open up the floor. Swamiji, last session, when we had 12 standard students with us, and if you remember, we asked him a question as to how many of you want to become something other than engineers and doctors in the basic professions 15 years back. 60% of them lifted their hands. So these teachers are not just educating the engineers and the doctors of tomorrow, but they're also educating the musicians, the actors, the NGO people to anything. Today there is a vast range of professions that parents are encouraging and students are wanting to pick up. So it is a paradigm shift from where we were 20 years back to now, or 30 years back to now. So your thoughts on teachers who need to be so mindful of what the student's interest is, that is why I think Chinmaya Vidyalaya has co-curricular activities and it's like a holistic education, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
That's why we have that, different activities, and we need to develop even further as times are changing. The choices are huge now. It's not like the typical few professions that were there. But the whole thing is, if you get into teaching them the art of learning, at the same time, developing in them to discover their uniqueness, recognizing their interest, even though they have to study all subjects. But really speaking, when I used to address the teachers and even parents, that see, every child can't be just in every subject. See, unfortunately, our education system gives us, just one uniform, at least in schooling, one uniform education. Yeah. Now, different bends of mind. Like some children just don't like mathematics. But basic mathematics, they have to learn, even some things for accounting. It's just a few things that they have to learn. And if that is taught and then they are allowed to develop, now unfortunately, all the marks matter. So you have to make them understand that unfortunately that matters in the system that we have. So do study, but recognize the potential in which subject they are good. And as a school, especially our Chinmaya Vidyalaya, to recognize students who are good in that particular field, give them an all-round development so that they are good at other subjects. And as I would communicate to the children when I was in CIRS, Chinmaya International Residential School, as a director there, so they would come up and tell me, why should I study geography? Or I'm a student of science, why should I study poetry? So I used to tell them, I know that you think that in science poetry is not there, but the ancient sciences have been captured in poetry only that people would remember. So poetry has got its use. Secondly is, okay, if you meet your girlfriend for the first time, or are you going to go and give her mathematic formulas? You have to have at least a poetical language to tell her that her hair is beautiful. So somehow or the other create interest in them. So then another thing which is very important even as teachers, because sometimes teachers also have different subjects, don't feel that the other subject is relevant. But what I made them understand, and even as teachers we must know, that even the previous educators in the primary classes would give us knowledge of everything so that we know what choices to make, number one. Second is also that each of these sciences, whether it's literature, I would call it all of sciences, including the spiritual science, each of these sciences develops a certain faculty of our thinking. Yeah? I think one of my most amazing development was when a teacher taught me what do you call critical appreciation of a poem.
Wow.
Yeah? Even though I was interested in the English language, English grammar and everything, but the critical appreciation of a poem was something that really opened my way of thinking in a completely different manner, to know how words are used and combined, and became later on so helpful in the spiritual science, which one word speaks 1,000 words or 1,000 meanings, no? And all in line with each other. So this is something that we have to make students understand, and that's what I tell them. Okay, I know you're not interested in geography or history, but the relevance of it. And again, it's important for the history teacher to point out the relevance of history in, say, even in physics. Because after all, most of the things that we study in physics is the history of physics, not really the subject physics. So each teacher can create an interest in a particular manner. So that becomes responsible for the teacher, and each teacher of different subject should complement. And that's why our Chinmaya Vision program, and especially for our Vidyalayas, our schools, that value-based education. When you say value-based education, in life also values are separate. Our academics are separate, our sports are separate. But how do they integrate with each subject of our life? Same way, how each subject integrates with each other. No, just as I showed you that the way we think in physics, recently in our new university, that is Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, our Chinmaya University, that is trying to bring the ancient knowledge systems and combine with contemporary knowledge systems and the ancient knowledge. Now, even to combine them so that we have the benefit of both, because modern as well as the ancient knowledge systems, people find it sometimes very difficult. But if you keep them separate, they are like two separate worlds that you have to live in. The world of values, the value of this, or the old, ancient, and the new, the spiritual, and the material. This kind of mindset that has come through our education system, taught by the British, the schematic way of thinking. It's not a wrong way, but it's a linear way of thinking. But to integrate, and if you see, our Indian sciences were not independent. They were all integrated. So if a physics teacher says, this is the history of physics, that when I'm talking about Einstein and Newton, for you to develop reverence as well as know how things evolved, it is history. And a history teacher points out that whatever you are learning, unfortunately they're only teaching us wars by the English with Indians, that's our main history. But a history teacher also looks deeper and gives examples of history where management, where how different sciences evolved. When all these things we can manage, can you imagine how much interesting a subject becomes for even those who seemingly don't have main interest? Because today's main interest is profession that you have to take up. Yeah. But today in every profession they are demanding that people who know only, say, mathematics or accounting or sciences, just as we are saying teachers have to play multiple roles, today in any business, any profession, including medicine, you can't just say, I'm a surgeon. So many things you have to manage. Paperwork you have to manage. Accounts you have to manage. Legal laws you have to manage. So an integrated knowledge system is what our Indian knowledge systems were. Yeah? Today it's all about diversity. So that interest we create, that will be very, very helpful. Like some of us get bored in mathematics, but my biology teacher showed me, that see how everything, all the plants, which is there in our Taittiriya Upanishad, everything in the universe has got this five-fold pentagon. So suddenly geometry interest came because of my interest in biology. Interest in mathematics formulas. How mathematics and even biology are linked. Geometry and biology are linked. Otherwise, a medicine student is not interested in mathematics. Our whole proportion of our body is so mathematical, is it not? So if we can create that interest. Now, all teachers can't know everything, but if teachers pick up a little bit and create interest in the different sciences, it will make learning even more interesting and also develop the children to develop interest in all the sciences.
Yeah,
All the subjects.
Absolutely.